here's Channel 4 anchor and chief investigative reporter Jeremy Finley.
Good evening. What you will see in the next hour is proof, according to whistleblowers, of widespread corruption within the Tennessee National Guard. This female officer says that you sexually harassed her and then threatened her career. What do you say to that? General, hey, this is Jeremy Finley with Channel 4. You know, I've tried to schedule a few interviews with you. General, will you please speak with me? And welcome back, folks. We are here live in Chattanooga. Jeremy Finley here with Tracy Cornett. We're at the scene of a vigil that is set to take place any minute now. If you can look behind us, you can see the folks that are starting to gather here at this memorial. There's a lot to get to throughout these newscasts. Retired Colonel William Wenzler was more than happy to answer questions from the governor, but was in quite the hurry when the I-Team had questions for him as well. This female officer says that you sexually harassed her and then threatened her career. What do you say to that? There isn't anything you want to say to that?
I want to thank you for your interest in the military department, and I'd like to thank you guys for supporting the veterans.
We've been trying to speak to Wenzler about this, an inspector general's investigation that shows he was found to have failed to adhere to military values for inappropriate comments and references to this female officer, including when she told Wenzler at a conference that she would walk away if he seriously offended her. He replied, "You might not want to do that. That might be bad for your career." Following that encounter, she told military investigators he sexually propositioned her.
He said that, you know, I'd really like to you. This is my room number. It was alarming that somebody, again, of his stature with that much power would think he was in a position to be able to do that and get away with it.
I denied everything then. I'm denying it again now. I will not participate in a reinvestigation of something that was unfounded to start with.
So are you saying that the military investigators were wrong then in their findings?
Absolutely.
And those military investigators also found more, that he improperly used government resources when he instructed that a female civilian subordinate receive a government BlackBerry that was used for the two to have after-hours conversations, a subordinate with whom he had an improper relationship. Do you think any of this should have precluded you from being rehired with the National Guard?
So I'll refer that question to General Hastings, sir.
General, I have some questions for you. So we tracked down the general after the budget hearing because during the Army investigation, Wenzler was his chief of staff. Do you have any concern about what the military investigators found?
I have concern about it. However, I will tell you is that having been through numerous investigations, that investigation was very shallow. Colonel Wenzler has denied these allegations that's in there.
Can you explain why Colonel Wenzler was rehired despite the findings from the military investigation?
Because he was absolutely the best man for the job. He has the background, has the experience, and has everything that that job needs and takes.
It sends a bad message.
But Brian Clubb questions Wenzler's rehiring. He works for an association that helps women in the military who've been harassed or battered.
When he was rehired, I think it's saying we don't care about sexual harassment, and that if your rank is high enough, that nothing's going to happen to you.
Are you concerned at all that it sends a negative message about how sexual harassment is handled in the Tennessee National Guard?
We treat sexual harassment very seriously at the state. I think the situation, because of the decision by the Army, he wouldn't be able to be promoted, left. General Hastings feels like he had the appropriate discipline at that point in time.
The governor is referring to what we first showed you yesterday, that after the military investigation, Wenzler was blocked for consideration for general and then retired, but as we've shown you, was then rehired by the Guard. Pembroke, Kentucky has a population of about 900 people, so when 3 of its residents were murdered, it shook the town. Now you have to consider the proximity of the victims to the only named person of interest by the military in this case. Take a look. Here's the home of 2 of the victims. Right next door, the 3rd victim. Then, right across the street, the only named person of interest. But there is a 4th person involved, and she knows she, too, is under a veil of suspicion.
We are heading to Calvin Phillips' home.
To understand what happened before the murders on November 19th, 2015, you have to go back to the past.
Today's date is November 2nd, 2015.
And to what happened when private investigators went to the home of Calvin Phillips.
From the outside in, Calvin, it doesn't look good.
Okay, well that's great, because the information on the discs, that'll speak for itself.
Just 2 weeks after this recording, Cal, his wife Pam, and their neighbor Ed Dancero would be murdered. Cal's body, found by investigators in his home, shot to death. Pam and Ed's bodies discovered in Pam's burned-out car nearby. A day later, a SWAT team raided the home of Army Major Christian Kit Martin, who was also detained for days by military investigators and then released. But since then, nothing. No arrests, no explanation. But a Channel 4 I-Team investigation has discovered how all of these people are linked beyond just being neighbors, and more importantly, who linked them.
I never imagined anything like this would happen to me.
For the first time, the woman who connects them all is speaking out, but with one condition.
You've even asked us not to reveal where we are right now.
Yes. I'm scared for my children.
Joan Harmon is the ex-wife of Kit Martin, a relationship, she says, defined by this 911 call.
Screaming in my face and threatening me.
In that 911 call and in complaints to the military, Harmon says Martin abused her and her children, even though in a hearing in family court in 2012, a judge denied a domestic violence order.
Ms. Martin, you did not meet the burden of proof.
Harmon says the Phillips did believe her, especially Pam.
She was just like a second mom to me, and Cal, he was incredible.
In fact, Harmon says after she moved out, she, the Phillips, and Ed Dancero took a concealed carry class together. The organizer of that class confirms the four did take that class.
They told me they didn't want me to be afraid, and they weren't going to be afraid, but we all needed to take measures to protect ourselves.
In fact, when Harmon went back to the house to gather her things, Cal Phillips went with her. And she says among some of her blankets, they found these, a military computer and discs marked secret.
Cal was convinced I had to keep them and turn them in, that he shouldn't have those things.
And at one point, Phillips and Harmon took all of this to the FBI. Not long after, Kit Martin learned he was the subject of a court-martial, not only for physical and sexual abuse, but also mishandling classified materials. Martin then hired private investigators who went to speak with Phillips, including why he went to the FBI with the military equipment.
When I saw the amount of classified, I'm looking at that and I'm going, this ain't supposed to be out here.
About Joan Harmon's relationship with Martin.
She said she was afraid of him, that she was concerned for her welfare.
But also this about her claims of abuse.
During this, she never told you that he's molesting the kids?
No, I don't ever remember
He's
that.
raped me?
No.
He sodomized me?
No.
He beats me?
No.
Knowing he was scheduled to testify in the court-martial, in the recorded questioning, Phillips would not elaborate what he intended to say.
I'll explain that on a stand I won't do here.
But there was something else, something that at times agitated Phillips, when the private investigators asked if he was having an affair with Joan Harmon.
What they're going to say to you, Calvin, is that you had an extramarital affair with this woman, and that provides a motive to set him up.
But the problem is, how do you create something? You got to have the resources.
There are questions if you had an affair with Cal Phillips.
No. My ex-husband's been trying to say that since I left him.
But Harmon knows there are more questions about her past. Court records show while she was married to Martin, she was also married to another man.
Did you not plead guilty to bigamy?
Yes. I couldn't afford an attorney. What was I going to do?
Martin's legal team believes all of this casts suspicion on Harmon and detailed their concerns in an email to police. But Harmon is convinced she knows who killed her neighbors.
My ex-husband.
You feel like your ex-husband is responsible?
Absolutely.
But the only person who knows if that claim is true is the only person of interest in the case, who is now answering questions for the first time.
Can you see why people would say, they got to look at this guy, he's suspicious?
Tomorrow night at 6, Kit Martin's first interview about the criminal investigation and the court-martial that's set to begin in just 2 weeks from now.
We were in the theater when it happened.
He was holding an axe and a gun.
Then I heard my daughter screaming.
They'd gone in to escape from the world for a while. They never expected to have to escape themselves.
I just told them, run, run.
And the source of all that fear, a thin man wearing glasses who before the afternoon showing of Mad Max casually walked into the nearby Dollar General. No one paid any attention to how Vincente Montano rummaged through his bag. A bag, investigators would later discover, carried weapons, pepper spray, and enough strange objects for police to believe a bomb was inside. He bought a drink, pulled a backpack out of that bag, and walked towards the theater. At the same time, the Bozarth family, Stephen, Mary, and their daughter Lucy, arrived early for the movie. It was supposed to be a calming experience, as Stephen would later tell investigators.
She had a heart catheterization yesterday. She's not even supposed to be under any kind of stress.
But the family would soon encounter more than just stress, as the man who had earlier entered the theater and had been staring at them walked up to their aisle and stood directly beside Stephen Bozarth.
Oh, I heard something poof, poof, like an air pistol. And at first I didn't think of it, but then I thought, well, that's directed at us. And I looked up, and then I heard my daughter screaming.
That's when police say Montano swung the axe, hitting Stephen Bozarth in the left shoulder.
The next thing I know, I was hit here, and I jumped up.
In an email to the I-Team, Bozarth says Montano raised the axe again, as if to strike him again, and for a moment saw Montano's face, telling us, "I only met his eyes for a second, but empty and haunted are the only two words I can think of to describe the way he looked."
We got shots fired, officer involved. Been at Hickory 8 movie theater.
We were the closest.
Jonathan Frith was the first officer to arrive to hear theater employees relaying what the families had seen.
Came running out and they were like, "There's a crazy man, he's got an axe," and he told us to run.
Frith and his partner first went to the projection room, but could see nothing. The room was dark, lit only by the projected images of Mad Max. You were going into this room not having any idea what you were about to encounter.
We all pretty much looked at each other and we knew what we had to do.
And as soon as he entered, he realized why he couldn't see Montano from above. The axe-wielding man was standing against the back wall. Crime scene investigators later placed a yellow cone where Montano was standing. The blue is where Officer Frith entered.
I felt the pressure it felt like a muzzle blast from, any other weapon. Just hit me in the side of my face. I thought I was done. I thought that was it.
Unaware that Montano only had an airsoft pistol, Frith fired back. This crime scene laser shows how Frith's bullet pierced several chairs. Did he say anything to you?
Never heard a word.
Thinking he'd been hit, Frith stumbled outside the door, while Montano moved down to the emergency exit door. Crime scene investigators would later see what was lying right where Frith entered, a bottle of lighter fluid. A lighter would be found nearby. Frith believes Montano was setting a trap.
Without a doubt in my mind, he was going to use that to set, a fire trail to the doors so that he could, as soon as we came in, he just lighted up. And this polyester is not very fire friendly.
You think he wanted to lure police officers in?
I do. I think that's what happened.
Photographs and crime scene drawings show what happened next. When the SWAT team entered, they encountered a theater filled with chemicals. Montano had not only sprayed pepper spray, but also bear repellent. Crime scene photos show how officers fired upon Montano, who they say threw projectiles at them, including a small propane tank, and kept shooting from his airsoft gun. When he at last emerged through the emergency door, armed with the axe, officers were outside. Montano was shot 22 times.